I was wondering to myself the other day, what's the easiest and quickest way of making some concrete barricades for Warhammer 40k or other games? And I came up with this. This is literally just XPS foam that we're going to craft in a way to look like these just blocks of concrete, which actually in the UK you'll often find these blocking roads instead of something like a Jersey barrier. You will still see them as well, and of course I've done a tutorial on those if you want that specific unique shape, but these are very easy. So I said to myself, and I wondered how quickly could I do it. I'm hoping to do them in about 30 minutes, and I'm going to make 4 of them. If I'm honest, during this one, because speed was of the essence, my filming not quite as good as it should be, but the result I still think pretty damn good. So I'm going to try and keep the timer in the shot, which does make actually getting this on camera a little bit more difficult than it should have been. But I start off with my XPS foam box. Now the XPS itself is 30mm thick, and I'm going to make it 30mm wide, but the length I actually like estimated about 12 centimeters or 120mm. Now I'm going to actually chop that down with, well, what I actually have is this metal sort of like scraper. It's actually designed to get 3D prints off a print bed, but I literally just attack the foam with that on both ends. And the reason I'm doing that is I want these like concrete barriers to not look like they've just come out of the factory. I want them to look pretty damn worn and you know, smooth square edges at the end. Might look fine for one side, but I just wanted them both to look a little bit more smashed up, so I'm just attacking it with this. You could use your fingers, but of course we're trying to do this as quickly as possible, so I'm using this metal spatula thing, and I do that for all 4 of these barricades. So when I'm damaging this, I'm trying to pick one side that's the top and one side that's the bottom, and generally I'm like ripping off chunks from the top because I figure that's the side that's more likely to get worn. I'm just using that metal thing or a knife just to sort of cut in a little bit and then rip it out with my fingers. I really enjoyed this metal tool actually because it allowed me to just like attack it with the sharp edges and get some really nice sort of like natural looking damage. I feel like if you use like a knife, you know, you're going to get a clean cut, and you don't necessarily want clean cuts, you want it to look a bit worn. So you can either do a little bit of a knife and then rip it off, or you could use like this, like something just sharp and metal, like a metal ruler would do it as well. But what I'm basically doing is I am just cutting out chunks by like essentially cutting a triangular shape out of the top, or I'm basically just going to stick it into one bit of the foam and sort of waggle it around in a circle to create like a circular damage. That looks pretty fine as well. And then I really mess up by trying to texture this by using like a wire brush. Now I think the wire brush can work effectively. I'm pretty sure Black Magic crafted a video on it and he made it look very nice. But what I basically did that was the mistake is I did all the texture in sort of like one direction, not like the band. And to be fair, that would work for like wood grain, but it doesn't really work for concrete. I think, you know, maybe I would have done the brush strokes in like a circle just to damage certain sections of it, and also to maybe like smooth off the corners of the concrete. Yeah, I sort of wish that I didn't attack it as aggressively with this wire brush. I'm sort of happy with it, but I think it should have not been all of the concrete barricade thing, and I shouldn't have done it in sort of like one direction, so like it didn't look artificial. And then in the bits where I've took off the like larger chunks, you might want to do some like exposed rebar, which is generally like, you know, like copper rusted material. There's various things you could use for this. You could use like a staple, or you could use like a paper clip. Now what I'm actually going to be using here is simple cocktail sticks because I had them to hand and I figured they would be very quick, because the way that I actually do this is I push them through the end of the piece, so it actually goes through the gap, leaving a little bit at the end. And it really creates like a nice effect. It sort of looks like it's one piece that's going all the way through it, but you might have to do a few cocktail sticks, one at either end, just to make the effect look a little bit more natural. Once it's damaged and I textured it, I then went in with a pen. I believe like a mechanical pencil is probably better for this, and you just sort of like create the cracks. I'm not particularly good at creating natural cracks. I sort of feel like all my cracks look the same. Obviously I repeat that 4 times because in this case I'm doing 4 barricades. Really it's just a case of making damage that looks sort of natural without looking too much. Obviously you can go overboard if you want to look really torn. You could do massive chunks out of it. I'm here testing this for speed, and you know, you could do nicer rebar if you wanted, but ultimately though, I think for the time that I put in, which is like less than 5 minutes a barricade, it looks fine. So I pressed pause at 1937 because I wasn't ready to paint it at this point, just because, you know, I needed to get my paint out and I wasn't ready. But yeah, straight away we move on to painting, and I'm basically going to mix some Mod Podge with some black paint, and I'm just going to cover the whole foam in that, including the bottom if you can. I get my hands very messy, but it's a very simple black bomb, and that takes probably about 5 minutes to cover the whole things in paint. So I think we stopped the clock at like 24:08. And really the painting of this is pretty easy. I'm just going to give this a very heavy grey, like natural warmish grey overbrush. I'm covering like 98% of everything here, leaving a little bit of black in the recesses. Just do that for all 4 of the pieces, however many pieces you've got. So the base colour is done at 28 minutes and 21 seconds. And then we're just going to dry brush it with a lighter grey. I'm actually using buff titanium mixed in with the initial grey. Stop the clock at 29:52, and the only thing I have left to do is the rebar. And to be fair, the rebar actually took me a little while. I started off trying to do like brown. I didn't like just brown, so then I got like a brown mixed in with this sort of like cheap copper paint that I had. But yeah, that took me a little bit of a while just because it's like detail work, and if you get it on the stone or the concrete, you're sort of ruining the effect. Ultimately, 4 barricades done at 32 minutes and 40 seconds. And you know what? I'm actually pretty pleased with them. Before we look at some prettier images, if you did like this video, I would be absolutely honoured if you considered supporting me on Patreon. I mean, I would really strongly appreciate it. It would help the channel grow immensely. Or just like and subscribe to the channel. I'd be very grateful with that as well. Let's have a look at something pretty. So that's it. Simple barricades, just over 30 minutes, but you know, I could have done it quicker, I'm sure. The couple of things that I would recommend not doing, which I mentioned in the video, which is the wire brush that I used. I sort of possibly damaged it a little bit too much. This is something I needed to do because I have a future project in mind. And you know what? They actually look pretty decent. As I said, these are sort of just concrete blocks, but on the table with like the scenery and stuff around them, I think they look pretty damn good. I'm pretty damn pleased with them, I'm not gonna lie. So that's it. They look fine for the time and effort. I'm really pleased with them. If you can get XPS foam of any kind of thickness relatively cheaply, then these are some cheap, easy, quick barricades, and you can't say further than that. Do like and subscribe, or consider supporting me on Patreon if you really want to. Thank you very much. Goodbye.